All right, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our KeyBank seminar series titled Protect and Detect Cybersecurity Threats, Email Hijacking, Takeover, and Prevention Demonstration. We are so fortunate to have today a great group that's going to lead you through this discussion, but more importantly, I'm very excited to have Greg Valancourt, who's Senior Payments Advisor for KeyBank, who is our sponsor of these great workshops, to kick off this excellent session. So in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, please use the chat function at the bottom or the question and answer, and Amber will be taking care of those. So thank you again for joining us. And to those I don't see again, happy holidays to you all. Greg, over to you.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Chamber's Small Business Workshop Series. I am Greg Valancourt, Senior Payments and Solutions Advisor in the Commercial Enterprise Group at KeyBank. KeyBank has been sponsoring this workshop series for the Chamber for several years now, because we see it as an extension of what we do for financial wellness of our small business clients every day. Like the Chamber, we view our role in the community as a strategic partner to our businesses, helping them prosper by providing quality banking services to meet their financial needs. My official title at KeyBank is Regional Cash Management Advisor, which means I specialize in helping you as business owners create efficiencies in your cash flow process, including helping you keep your accounts safe from fraud using the latest technologies. As our financial institution, keeping our customers' financial data secure is of the utmost importance to us, and we're really good at it. We are also very good at helping our business clients safeguard their financial accounts and protect their clients with state-of-the-art cash management and merchant service solutions. If, after today's presentation, you are interested in learning more about KeyBank's payment solutions, I'd be happy to set up a time to speak with you. You can reach me either through the Chamber or 860-645-2132 or email at greg.valancourt@key.com. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speakers, Michael Giaffreda and Wes Spencer. Michael is president of Cybersecurity. Having spent decades building his own business and assisting others in improving theirs, he is laser focused on helping organizations survive the multitude of cyber threats they face every day. He has a passion for helping and growing businesses, and he strives to approach each engagement as if he were serving his own team. Wes Spencer is the Chief Information Security Officer for Perch Security. He is a nationally recognized technology innovator and cybersecurity expert. Wes has served as a senior executive and advisor from startups to Fortune 500 corporations. He has served on a multitude of advisory committees, including the Department of Homeland Security. Please welcome Michael and Wes and enjoy the program.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to kick things off. I'm Amber Maida. I'm the marketing manager at Cybersecurity, and I just wanted to introduce our speakers today. So today we have, as Greg just said, we have Mike and we have Wes Spencer. We also have a couple other guys from Perch Security, Bryson, who is our senior security analyst, and Paul Scott, who is our director of threat research. They'll be joining us. Mike's going to give a little bit of background, introduce what's happening, and then Perch is going to get into the live demo of it. It's really cool. We're going to dive into what it looks like when a hacker actually infiltrates your mailbox. So a little bit about who we are. As I said, I'm Amber Maida of Cybersecurity. So we are a IT support and cybersecurity company. We have 3 goals. We want to protect you from cyber threats. We want to provide that secure IT support to you. And we also want to help you comply with the latest cybersecurity regulatory requirements. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Middlesex County Chamber. We've been a partner since 2015. We really love working with the Chamber and all the local support that they provide to all the organizations that are involved with it. And it's just a really awesome chamber to be involved in. Thank you for inviting us to be part of the workshop today, and thanks, Greg, for introducing us as well. So I just want to hand it over to Michael Giaffreda, who will be taking it over. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Amber, and thanks everyone from Middlesex County Chamber. Thanks, Greg, for sponsoring this. We've all spent a lot of time in Zoom meetings these days, and so I'm thankful that you guys chose to invest your time with us here today. We'll try our best to make sure this is a valuable use of your time. Please use the chat function, use the Q&A function. Amber's going to be watching that for us so that we can get your questions answered at the end of this session. But when you think of them, throw them into the chat so that we don't lose focus on what's there. 3 checkpoints we're going to have today that I just want to go over real quickly. First, we're going to try to understand why your information particularly is at risk. A lot of times organizations don't recognize the value that they have in their organization and their data and why a cyber attacker would be after it. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to have the super cool email hacking demonstration done by the folks at Perch. This is an exciting opportunity to see kind of what happens under the covers when one of these attacks is actually happening and how folks react to it if you're monitoring and managing your organization's threats. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is some real actionable things that you can do today to try to help prevent some of these awful things from happening to your organization. So we'll go through some actionable things that you can take away from this. Some you can take care of yourself, some you might want to engage somebody with, but at the end of the day, our real goal is to make sure that you're protected. So let's jump right in. Why do cyber criminals want your data? We focus on small, medium-sized organizations and look at what they have as their treasure. And the fact of the matter is cyber criminals are focused largely on small and medium-sized organizations when you talk about the large numbers of hackers that are out there, because it's an easy way for them to make money. Well, you may not have the number of records that a Citibank has or that a large insurance company has. What they'll try to do is find an easy target that has also less defenses. So your organization probably has less budget for cybersecurity, less layers of defense in place, and so they'll look for an organization that's most likely to let them through the front door. Recent statistic, these change all the time, but here's one. Average cost to a small organization, a couple $100,000 on average. When you see some of these statistics that say cyber breaches cost, $16 million on average, that takes a lot of those big breaches like Target and Equifax and those into account. We really try to narrow it down to what it really looks like for a small organization, a medium-sized organization, because we know that's what we're out there to protect. That's what you have today. And your data and your information is just as important to you and sometimes even more important to you than some of these large organizations have. So the goal of a hacker is to infiltrate your organization. And so when we developed what we wanted to do to protect your organization, we actually hired a hacker to help us understand how they would try to get into your organization and steal your data. So taking your local business, whether it's a small services business, a retail business, they want to take several of these organizations and be able to gather data from many organizations and then collect them together to be able to monetize that as a larger group of data that they could sell on the dark web, or charge ransom to many small organizations and collect that together to get their large booty, to get their treasure. So what we found is that they could do this without all that much effort if you didn't have additional layers of defense in place for your organization. So we hired a hacker and said, what would you try to do to break into a network? And we walked through the entire network and asked them, okay, what would you do first? Okay, maybe we'd look for credentials on the dark web, or we'd search for open ports in a firewall. If we broke in, we'd try to find default credentials used on devices such as printers, et cetera. We would try to hijack mailboxes, et cetera. And so we looked at each point where a hacker would try to break in, and then we looked for a way that we could stop them at that point. If they got past that point, what would they do next? How could we stop them at that point? There are many, many different types of attack points. What we've tried to look for were the ones that were most common in the small, medium-sized business networks that we were trying to protect, that you guys own out there today. So out of all of that, we looked at, okay, what are the top 3 types of breaches that are happening? And this was in 2020. The top 3 cyber threats that were faced were ransomware, confidence fraud, and business email compromise. We're going to talk about each one of those in specifics to talk about how that looks from your organization's standpoint. But you can see the number of dollars that have been lost in businesses is really, it's tremendous, and it doesn't take even a fraction of that to put a small, medium-sized organization out of business. It's very difficult to recover from some of this. And that's why it's so important for us to try to prevent any of this from happening, as opposed to just being there to clean it up after it does happen. We certainly do that. We can do that. It's not what we want to do. We'd rather be on offense as opposed to defense. And we try to educate our clients to think in that same methodology, and make cybersecurity a part of their organizational culture. So let's talk about each one of those just for a few seconds. Ransomware. Each of you have probably seen or been near a ransomware attack, or seen a version of it on a television show or NCIS or something. And these are happening every 14 seconds. By 2021, which, believe it or not, is only a few weeks away, they say that's going to be down to every 11 seconds. And this is where someone triggers off a piece of malware on a computer, maybe from a phishing email or something to that effect. And the malicious code will then go try to work its way throughout your network to get on as many devices as possible before it triggers that screen that you see that says, "You've been hacked. Click here so that you learn. We'll teach you how to get Bitcoin, and call our helpline in the event that you don't know how to get Bitcoin and pay the ransom." Ransom now is the costs have been going up for the ransom alone. I think an average device now, they're asking for between $500 and $3,000 for every device that's locked up with ransom. So multiply that by the number of devices you have in your organization, and you can see how quickly the cost, just the hard cost, if you chose to pay the ransom, would be. Confidence fraud is the second type that is very prevalent out there today. Confidence fraud examples, the most common that you hear about a lot is something about gift cards, where the CEO sends an email which isn't really from the CEO, but they're saying, "Hey, I need you to buy 10 $100 Amazon gift cards and just send me the codes. I'm in a meeting with a bunch of important prospects, and I need you to just send me those so I can hand them out as gifts and thank yous for them being here." This happens all the time. While it sounds somewhat silly when we're talking about it in this context, generally there's some pressure applied to the victim, to the employee who is the lucky winner of the task to buy the Amazon gift cards. And so because they want to please the CEO, they want to act quick. They don't necessarily think through what's happening, and it causes this type of fraud to happen a lot. Tech support fraud, another similar one, where someone will call an employee of your organization and say, "We're from your managed service provider. Looks like you're missing an update. Just need to get on your computer so I can apply that. Please go to this site, type in this code, and then I'll take it from there. You don't have to worry about it." Again, that type of thing happens on a regular basis. The key is having your employees understand when to accept a request like that from your actual managed service provider, and when to ask more questions. And then the last is a lot of phishing, spear phishing. You see this stuff every day, where there are organizations who say, "Oh, you need to click in to be able to change your account details because we're upgrading our security, etc." Those phishing emails happen every day. They're getting better. They no longer have lousy grammar in them and really obvious return addresses and such. And so it's being more and more important for your staff to be vigilant about things that they're clicking and the things that they're seeing. The third type that we're going to talk about, which we're going to have the demo on today, is business email compromise. And this really has risen. I don't have the chart in here, but the graph for this is almost straight up for how prevalent this has become. And business email compromise happens when an attacker comes and finds a way to get into your email mailbox. And when they get into the email mailbox, they'll do something such as create a forwarding rule in your mailbox which will forward each of your emails that you're receiving to them. And so then they'll just sit there and watch and see what happens in the background until they see a really juicy email, something about a financial transaction, something which might yield them some personal identifiable information, or some other client file or something like that that they could then monetize. And then they jump into the middle of the conversation and make sure that they're the ones receiving the valuable information, receiving the wire transfer, et cetera. And you'll see in more detail how that can happen, a demo that we're going to see from Wes and his group. But this is happening every day. We see it happen within our clients. There are ways to prevent it from causing damage to your organization. And we'll talk about some of those later today. But it really, you need to be vigilant, particularly people who have email and job responsibilities that require financial transactions. So those are the three biggest breach types that we're seeing happen to small, medium-sized business networks, and why folks are after your particular information in your organization. From here, we're going to move on to the demonstration. I know everybody got here to see that part and not see me talk, so we'll jump right into that. And moving in, maybe you could start off by just telling us a little bit about Perch, how you guys operate, and what your organization works like.
Absolutely. So just very quickly before we jump into the content, because I think everyone, and myself included, are itching to see some of this live and in action. But when you think about Perch, we call ourselves a co-managed threat detection and response platform. And what we mean by that is we are a team of professionals that are watching networks 24/7, 365. We operate completely out of the U.S. We're all our SOC, our security operations centers in Houston, but we're headquartered in Tampa. And what we're all about is giving you visibility into your log data wherever that may be, in your network threat data wherever you may be. So if you need to solve for SIM kind of things like security information and event management, if you're a bank, if you're healthcare, if you're regulated and you have to do something with logs, you get that check mark with Perch, right? But much more than just regulated industries. We've got companies from very, very large, 250,000 employees, so very, very Fortune 500 large, all the way down to very small doctor's office, clinic, single practitioner kind of practice. And so what we're about doing is giving you threat visibility into all of those devices, whether it's on premise, workstation servers, sensors, all that kind of stuff. It's work from home, which is really important in this day of COVID, giving you the ability to see threat activity wherever your employees go, and then also in the cloud. And cloud is what we're talking about today. So we're going to dive into this. And Paul, not to spoil your content here, but for the folks that are attending, I will tell you two of the biggest things that we are struggling with in the industry is obviously, business email compromise is a big, big deal. And then just understanding what's going on in your threat landscape around ransomware, around all that kind of stuff. And cloud has a huge piece to play in both of these. And I would actually just love to get from the chat as we get started. Does anybody, what level of concern do you have with cybersecurity today? Would you say you have a high level of concern, a medium level of concern, or a low level? If you just pop into chat what that is for you, I would just love to get some feedback. Yeah, so high levels, we got a medium, and that's totally fair, right? Lots of highs, still kind of piping through. Yep. So that's pretty much what we see. This is a big issue of importance, right? And so we're going to cover some of this. And what we want to do today, we're going to do something a little bit more unique. We're going to put our hacker hat on for a minute. And Paul, as I get ready to turn it over to you, we're going to show you from the bad guy side how these things happen. One thing that Sun Tzu said like 3,000 years ago when he wrote his Art of War book was, you must know thine enemy. And we're going to give you a little picture into that. So this is who Perch is. This is what we do. And Kyber team, thank you so much for letting us join you today. They are awesome partners of ours. Man, we love Kyber. They really know what they're doing. What a great team. So Paul, take it away, my friend.
Thanks, Wes. So yeah, as Wes pointed out, business email compromise is a big problem for organizations. A lot of you have probably moved your Office products to the cloud. I mean, show of hands or in the chat, Are you currently using Office 365? Let's see if we've got some comments there. We got some chats, Wes. Yeah, so a lot of people using Office 365, it looks like. So one of the problems as we move our Office workloads to the cloud is that Microsoft is really not responsible for securing them. So it's really still on us. It's really on us to protect that data. We think that just because we've moved to the cloud, okay, Microsoft's going to handle everything. That's really not true. And if you look at their Microsoft shared responsibility model for security, they kind of paint that picture for you, and they're not hiding that. So they're responsible for the cloud infrastructure, but access and control of the data that resides in Office 365 is on you to protect and detect unauthorized access to that data. And so, as we move our workloads to Office 365, we have to be making sure that we have ways to monitor these workloads for threats. And that's exactly what Perch has done with our Office 365 integration. We were able to pull logs from Office 365 or now M365 and detect threats going on in that data. And we're going to show some of that today. So what are some of these threats and risks that you have to be monitoring your Office 365 workloads for? Of course, one of the big things that we're going to be talking about here today is business email compromise, but additionally, malicious Office documents are coming through that email. People are credential phishing or spear phishing, very targeted phishing your organization. There's potential insider threats, sometimes purposeful and sometimes unpurposeful. And then additionally, a lot of sensitive data is in those Office documents in your OneDrive and stuff like that. If that data got out, that could be a data loss event for your company, and that could be a compliance or regulatory concern. But business email compromise is what we're going to be heavily focused on today. The FBI put out in April an alert, a public service announcement about business email compromise, specifically in cloud environments like Office 365. And they were estimating that, in the 5-year period there where they had statistics, $2 billion was lost through scams and other business email compromise scenarios.
Yeah, and Paul, one thing I want to add to this, so I have a long experience in banking and also working along Department of Homeland Security. I've served on a couple of committees with DHS, and one of the things I know when the FBI and or the DHS put out one of these PSAs, this is their way of saying, hey, we've seen this enough that you really need to take it seriously. So you'll never see a PSA from the federal government if it's something like emerging and they're not sure about. In other words, this has become so systemic and such a major issue that we've really got to take action. And so that's what these PSAs are all about. And I'll tell you guys too, from our perspective, the top 2 threats that every organization should be most concerned about, and the top 2 threat outcomes that Perch sees the most are business email compromise and systemic ransomware. And when I say systemic ransomware, I mean, not just one machine, but the entire organization has been shut down through ransomware. And so business email compromise is continuing to grow. We were kind of curious to see if it would go down in trend or up in trend throughout 2020 and into 2021. And our threat intelligence is absolutely seeing that this is picking up all the more. And the damages are just extremely high from this. So just wanted to kind of point that out, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Wes. And I'll point out something too, is it takes attackers a little bit of time to catch up to the technology that businesses are moving to. So as you've moved to Office 365, they have followed. They're maturing their capabilities in these areas and understanding how to operate these platforms. So, definitely I think that's part of this trend up in this PSA here. So what is a business email compromise at a high level? Maybe a user receives a phishing email, they give up their credentials into that phishing site, and then a number of bad things can happen. And that's what we're really going to be focusing on, is what are these bad things that could be happening, and what do these phishing emails look like in the phishing sites themselves? So we're going to play through a scenario today. I'm going to be playing the role of your narrator and cybersecurity analyst. Bryson is going to be playing the role of the hacker, and Wes has volunteered to be Fish today. He's going to be the company employee that gets their credentials compromised and starts off this incident for the organization. So A lot of these in malicious emails or phishing emails that you get, they blanket the entire internet. Basically, if they can find an email address, they're just going to send some phishing emails to it. But other attackers are a bit more targeted, and those attackers are usually a bit more successful. In spear phishing emails that target your organization very specifically, the attackers are using business intelligence services and social media services to identify the targets and kind of enumerate your employees and understand those employees. So they might be using websites that maybe even you use in your sales organization to find prospect organizations. They're prospecting too. So they're in Zoom Info. They're looking up, based on NASIC codes and things like that. They're looking up different industries, what organizations are in those industries, how big your company is, how much revenue you have, where you're located, etc. Additionally, they might pivot from some of these business intelligence tools to LinkedIn, maybe figuring out every employee that works at your company and what key employees they want to target. And then additionally, they'll go down and actually do research on those people that they want to target at those organizations, look into their social media and see what their likes and dislikes are. We know Wes likes barbecue. We know Wes likes whiskey. Maybe he's more likely to click on something like that. So hackers will find some context that makes things interesting for users to click on, and leverage that in order to kind of carry on their business email compromise objectives. So we're going to take a look at some of the scenario. Let's see let's see how this looks from a hacker's perspective when they're doing some of this recon.
This company looks like the perfect target. Small businesses are easy prey. They'll click on any link. Let me add them to the list and I'll send out my phishing bait to the masses.
So Wes, it looks like you got an email here.
I sure did. Yeah, let's take a look at this. I want you guys to take a look at this with me, the audience. You kind of play my role with me, okay? So if you got this email now, obviously, you know the scenario here, but put yourself in the middle of a really busy day, right? It's 11:30. You're getting ready to hit lunch. Your tummy is growling. You're getting. Oh yeah, and hope you guys liked our hacker laugh. By the way, you're going to get more of that in just a minute. But does anybody see any red flags in this email? I mean, obviously, we've made a couple that are pretty clear of something that might be a red flag. But I want you guys to use the chat and tell us some red flags that you see. But also put your hat on of just a regular employee. You're busy and there's some things that stand out here, right? I mean, hey, it's got my full name. It does say something about corporate security policy. Yeesh, that's a little scary, right? That is definitely something that would probably catch a lot of people. You see the time sensitivity here, end of business day on yesterday. Oh no, now I'm late on this. Yikes. And so you guys are pointing out a couple things, Isaiah and Sam, definitely good things right there. Sam is saying, hey, the sender email is suspect for sure. But, again, if you're busy and we're kind of being funny with the Gmail account, oftentimes, as you guys know, it might be a little bit more sneaky, but somebody saw this earlier. You guys see the real insidious part? That domain looks legit, doesn't it? At first glance, your eyeball sees it and you're like, yep, that's good. But you'll notice that it is slightly malicious there. So, okay, good. So let's go ahead and move forward, Paul.
So let's click that link, Wes.
Yeah, so I clicked the link, right? Because I'm busy. I wasn't really paying attention. I click that guy. I pop in my email. And okay, all looks good. So here we go. I'm going to pop in my password as is normal. And we're going to ignore two-factor, of course, in this case, right? But it didn't. My password didn't work. What happened? Oh, that's a little strange. Let me try it again. I'm going to go ahead and type my email in again. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to hit the next button once I finally kind of type this correctly. There we go. Hit next. And okay, I don't know why it didn't work last time, but I'm going to pop my password in again and I'm going to hit sign in. And
I'll point out one thing here is that I got this kind of on a loop for this section of it. The domain, if you check this domain, there's a small typo in this domain. It's not actually microsoftonline.com. And what they want to do when they're redirecting you back to the real site, and if you check this out after Wes puts in his password here, it redirects back to the real Microsoft Online, because the next time Wes enters his password, it's actually going to work, and he may not realize that he got phished. And hackers will do this all the time. They'll redirect. Hacker, do you do this all the time?
All the time.
Yep. So hackers do this all the time. They redirect back so that you don't maybe realize that you got phished. Maybe it was just, oh, I don't know what happened there, but maybe I typed my password in wrong. So, Wes may not realize he got phished here, but he definitely got phished. And let's see what that looks like from the attacker's side.
All right, I'm ready for my first victim. Looks like somebody clicked on the link.
And so as you can see in there, I might replay this one more time. As you can see in there, we've set up a web server to catch that credential. So as Wes has put in his credentials there, it's actually siphoned it over to an attacker's web server. We see Wes Perch CTF on Microsoft.com. That's the login here. And after that, you can see the password. That might actually be the real password. So if you wanted to try to log into Wes's account, you might be able to do that right now. But anyway, this is what it's going to look like on the attacker's side. They're going to be looking for some way to catch that credential.
Oh, yeah. All right, I've got a user, I've got a password. Let's check out his Office 365 account. Just log in here. Let's see if this password works. It works. I'm in. All right, now that I'm in, let's create some persistence. So I've got access to his account. A good way to create persistence is to create a mail forwarding rule. So let's set this rule up. That way any email that comes into Wes is forwarded to me. Even if he changes his password, I can still see all of his email from today till infinity, because he'll never figure this out.
Yeah, and this is something that we see hackers do all the time. One of the first, I would say, top 3 things that they do when they get in is set up some sort of forwarding rule to get access to that stuff. And you can see here the forwarding rule that was created, hacker rule, definitely not suspicious. But yeah, this will be done to kind of gain persistence over the account. That they don't have to log in and create so many logins from maybe non-standard locations and things like that. So this is probably one of the top 3 things that we see attackers do when they get access to an Office 365 account.
Yeah, Paul, I want to add a couple things to that as well. So what we're doing is we're showing you a very common use case of what bad guys do. Now, obviously, like Paul mentioned, they wouldn't call it hacker rule. They wouldn't send it to totes hacker Gmail. It'd be something more insidious than that. But this is probably one of the top 2 or 3 things when we see business email compromise. One of the most common things is a new forwarding rule. And so what does that mean for us in designing a cybersecurity program? Well, one of the things you need to have visibility into is activity like this. It may be totally normal that somebody has a new forwarding rule set up. It may be malicious. And so the goal is to say, hey, we need to know anytime an organization sets up a new outbound forwarding rule or other signs of potential threat activity, we need to detect that. And we need to take a look at it and put eyes on it and say, hey, is this normal? Okay, cool. The user's going on vacation or whatever it may be. It's normal activity. Or, whoa, this one is definitely malicious and something we should take action on. And we can't secure it unless we can see that activity.
Yeah. And so, definitely one of the things here is like, you may allow in your organization emails to be forwarded outside of the organization's domain. That may be acceptable for your organization. But, if an analyst is looking at this and they see, we're forwarding it to some domain that's not the user's domain or some free email service, we'll probably look at that a little bit more suspiciously, a little bit more closely. So after the attackers got some persistence, they might continue on their objectives. Let's see what Hacker Bryson's going to do next.
Now that I've got some persistent, let's see if we can spread our influence. Yeah, this looks good. People always trust emails from someone they know inside the organization, especially from an existing email chain. Yeah, let's update the final version of this process. I'm going to attach my own specially crafted document here. Feel free to open it. Make sure you enable your macros.
Yeah, so definitely another thing that we're seeing hackers do once they get access to your business email is kind of find an existing thread with a file attachment, maybe sending an update out on that thread. When you get a Office document from outside the organization, you're going to be a little bit more suspect of it. But if it's coming from within your organization and it's part of a conversation thread that you are already having, the chances of you opening that and following the instructions, like enabling macros on that document, you're more likely to follow them, especially if it has to do with, some process that you need to be compliant with. So we see this frequently, and, our threat intelligence tells us that it's happening widely. So definitely be looking out for stuff like this. So I'm going to actually hop over to Perch at this time and show you kind of what all of this looks like from an analyst perspective. And then we're going to take it even a little bit further and go past Office 365. So bear with me 1 second while
and while you're doing that, I want to say a couple things. So a really good question just came in, and I want to just answer that. So, someone's asking, what do I do if these emails have been forwarded? What happens in a case like this, right? And so this is where Kyber and Perch work together. We're here to help you. We understand as an organization, you're doing what you're good at, which is whatever your business is. If you're healthcare, you're healing, right? And so for us, our perspective is to say, hey, look, if something like that happened, we're going to help you take a look, determine, is it malicious, and what does the log show of what happened? There's a story in every attack, and we're going to show you a story on this one. But what we'll do is we'll work together. That's what Kyber is here for. It's what Perch is here for us to do the investigation and help you and say, this is what we're seeing. This is the extent. This is the severity. These are the things that we need to do in response, right? And so, again, I want to keep coming back to this. I'm going to be a broken record here, Paul, but we can't secure what we can't see. And so, what we're really talking about here is giving you that visibility into those activities that may or may not be malicious. And if they are malicious, then we see that and we say, what do we do about it, right? It's great to have all these preventative controls in place, like spam controls and antivirus. Those things are great. But at the end of the day, at some point, those things fail, right? We know they fail. And so our goal here is to say, when they fail, what do we do? How do we pick this up and investigate and take a look? So, Paul, go ahead. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. So yeah, we've got this is the same UI that a Perch security analyst would access to analyze some of these alerts. We can see here that approximately 15 hours ago, I put these into an investigating status when they came in yesterday and last night. But yeah, we can see here a couple of events related to Office 365 just right off the bat. We've got a login from outside the United States, and also we can see an inbox forwarding rules created. Could be somebody traveling, could be somebody going on vacation, could be good, could be bad. So let's take a look. I've opened up one of these over here just to save us a little bit of time. And so in this one, we can see that at 1711 or 511, it looks like the user Wes logged in from an IP address that's associated with Israel. So I know, knowing Wes, that he's actually located in Florida, and he hasn't talked about any vacation recently. So I don't believe that he's actually in Israel. Additionally, by going back and looking at other logons from Wes in the past, an analyst might pivot around this, look up Wes's username, and look for other login activity. And we'd see that, maybe recently he had logged in from somewhere in the United States. And so, this is actually something that's very suspect. And this is the full record that you can see here. Lots of information here, but it's summarized up at the top. We can even see, looks like he's using an Apple product. I know Wes is a Windows user. So this looks totally uncharacteristic for Wes. This is definitely suspect.
And Paul, one thing I want to say too, like I'm probably reading into a couple of your minds here, and you're like, "Whoa, this log stuff is intimidating. I don't know how to do this." Keep in mind what Paul is showing. Paul's showing you this from the analyst perspective, right? So Perch and Kyber working together, we have 24/7, 365 threat analysts, and so what we're doing here is Paul is showing you, he's putting the hat on of a Perch threat analyst that's looking at this log data for you on your behalf. You don't ever have to check this out. We're just showing you kind of the back end or the internal shop talk, so to speak, of what we would do and how we would see these threats.
Yeah, this is definitely the co-managedness of Perch. You can get in here and look at this stuff, but by no means do you have to. It's great for looking at what happened in the past, but it's Perch and Kyber's responsibility to kind of handle all this for you. So let's look at the data related to this other alert. Okay, so we can see that just 1 minute after we have a login from outside the United States, from Israel, for Wes's account, that a forwarding rule is created for Wes. Oh, and there's that hacker rule. So let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. We can see here in the parameter section that the email is now being forwarded to this Gmail address. And so, that's suspicious as well. So somebody has accessed Wes's account outside of the country and then added this rule. I'm not going to pivot through these logs because we are a little short on time, or we're running a little short on time. But I wanted to go back and look at some of these other alerts. Now, from what Hacker Bryson showed us earlier, we know that he found that email thread and sent a reply on it. And that's what you're seeing here, is that one of those people that received that email opened it up and enabled the macros. And as a result, some bad stuff happened. You don't need to know what all these things mean, but as security analysts, we do. And so what this is telling me is that we've downloaded some additional payloads. This is a beacon out to a command and control server. And then we do see some Loki bot related user agent traffic in that beaconing. So it definitely looks like that special document that Hacker Bryson sent out was actually a malicious document that has taken over control of one of these machines. You can see that the machine that opened it is this 192.168.0.18, which is reaching out to the United Kingdom, Indonesia. So this is the infected machine right here now. And then we can also see here that this infected machine, the same machine, is now reaching out to the domain controller. So if you're not familiar with the zero logon vulnerability, it is a recently disclosed vulnerability. This is a critical vulnerability. If you're not patched against this vulnerability, it allows for a privilege escalation to domain administrator to take over that domain administrator account, to reset that password and take it over. So basically the story here is that from a phishing email, the user's password was taken, the hacker got access to the account, they used that access to send malicious documents out to the organization, and as a result, somebody opened that document and the domain was compromised. That means that this attacker now has complete control over this organization. At this point, just out of curiosity, how many people would detect this chain of events today? Do you feel confident that you would see some of this stuff?
Yeah, give a yes or a no in chat. Yeah, okay, good. So we're getting some yeses and some nos coming in. And I know these are all coming into the panelists, so almost all are no. A few yeses, which good. If you have a yes, that's wonderful. Really, really good. Hey, a couple of things I wanted to chat about too, Paul, as things are coming in. So one of them is a really good question that came in from one attendee. They said, you may have mentioned this earlier, but what's the purpose for hackers forwarding email? What are they looking for? And the answer to that is, and Paul, I want you to elaborate on this too, but the answer to that is it could be all sorts of things, right? In some cases, they're looking to commit business email compromise. They're watching all these emails coming in and out, especially if they target someone that has access to financial payment systems, and they're waiting for an invoice to come in. And once they see that invoice, they may slip into that and say, oh, no, hey, got that email. Actually, it doesn't need to go to this payment address. It needs to go to that payment address. Instead of $500, it's $1,200. Or maybe they send in a new fake invoice that's never been seen before for, $150,000. And if you're a larger org, you may have someone that sees that email, it seems legit, and they pay it. So they're actually just watching for the right opportunity. In other cases, and I've seen this happen before, this is really scary. Some banks still allow you to do a password reset over email, and then they have the two-factor over email. And so what they'll do is they'll use access to that email, reset your banking credentials. The new two-factor check will come in. They'll use email to do it. Now they have full access to your banking system. And at that point, nasty things happen. And it begins and commits from the email itself and using the forwarding rules. In other cases, you'll see different things that may happen, right? But they're using the email forwarding rule to get access to your email to see all of the things coming in and out of your email. So that's a really good question. Paul, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd also add that, they want to be watching that email. They want to be monitoring that email account, waiting for that perfect opportunity, but they don't want to be logging in every 10 minutes, every 30 minutes, every day, and creating logs that we can use as defenders to notice the activity. So by just getting in there once, setting up that inbox forwarding rule, they can continue to monitor that email account without being connected to it, visibly in the logs. So it just reduces the amount of noise that they make.
Yeah,
This is
good.
one
And then
login, as long as they don't have Perch.
you heard it from the hacker himself. That's awesome. Hey, another question that came in, I'm going to answer live because it's really, really good. So one person's asking, can phones be hacked if you're checking your email from your phone? Paul, you want to answer that?
Yeah. So, if you're using your phone and you get one of these phishing emails and you go and type in your username and password, yeah, absolutely. It is possible that they could also, one of these malicious documents that they send out internally could be targeting phones. There's definitely malware out there that's focused on phones. So if this attacker was very much focused on compromising mobile devices for an organization, yeah, that could absolutely happen.
And then yet another good question. Man, you guys are awesome with questions. So this one's really good too. They say, out of curiosity, do you ever attribute any of these attacks to an established APT group? And one thing we haven't really talked about much today is you're actually talking to Paul Scott, who is our director of threat research. And so Paul, you are actively involved in tracking and correlating threat actor groups, that sort of thing. I will say sometimes threat actors, they're much more publicized for those that run ransomware, those that run business email compromise, and what we see here are usually less attributed. They're a little bit quieter behind the scenes. But Paul, you want to add anything else since this is your day job at Perch?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, with some of these families and things like that, we can absolutely attribute them to different threat actors. Like when we see Emotet incidents, there's really one group that's running Emotet. Additionally, different ransomwares, sometimes there's one group that's responsible for running that. So yeah, we are able to attribute some of this to APTs. And additionally, with our focus, we've been able to identify a few threat actors, even down to identifying their real identities. I think there was one case, Bryson, where we had infiltrated a botnet and found through some GitHub and social media sites, we actually found links to the real identities of these hackers. It was one person out of Canada and another one in France. So yeah, we actually do a lot of this. I think over the last year, we've identified and named 3 different persistent threats for MSPs. So yeah, we're absolutely looking into that.
And just to add a little bit, in case for those that may not be technical, what we're talking about here is understanding who our adversary is, where they may reside, how they like to act, who they go after, what targets, and how do they establish those targets. And so, for example, you may have, Chinese hackers are usually much more interested in intellectual property, whereas like Syria, Croatia, North Korea, many of those others are actually more interested in financial damages and financial outcomes. And so understanding who your enemy is and understanding how they operate is very, very, very important. And by the way, I published a link if you're curious and just just want to read a little bit more about like us uncovering one group at Perch, this makes us really happy. Like one of the things that makes me really smile at the end of the day is when we're doing good in this world, right? And if you want to see one, there's Dark Reading. They're a really good news agency that published something about a year ago of a takedown and some research of a criminal group called KSN. So feel free to check that out if you'd like.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. So yeah, this scenario could have gone any number of ways. A lot of times business email compromise is going to go towards that wire fraud, but it could additionally go towards, it could also go another direction. So for those of you that said yes, you would have detected some or all of this kill chain, great. In this scenario, you've actually prevented ransomware at your organization. After this attacker, it's totally possible. We've seen Conti ransomware doing this. After getting some level of access to the organization, they're using zero logon to escalate privileges or any other privilege escalation, really, and then using the domain controller to push out software to all connected hosts. And so that software package could be ransomware. So in this scenario, if you've said yes, you could detect this. Congratulations, you've stopped a ransomware incident at your organization. If you said you were unable to detect this in this scenario, you likely would have had every machine and domain connected machine in the organization ransomed. So this, it's very important. You can see here that, they've been able to pivot basically through, your cloud into your real organization. And, without being able to monitor the cloud and the network and the logs off those machines, it really takes all of those pieces to be able to tell this whole story. So that's, part of the importance of monitoring this.
Thanks, guys. That was a great demonstration. Enjoyed watching that, and I certainly appreciate that you guys are watching all of that in the background, because I personally wouldn't be able to handle the level of investigation that you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis under there, under the covers. So appreciate all of that. Okay, so we talked about why your information's at risk. We did the demonstration as we talked about. Let's talk a little now about how you guys can protect yourselves. One of the phrases we like to use in our organization is once breached, always breached. And so again, this goes to the ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. We want to make sure that people never get into your organization, because once they get in, very difficult to get out. The way we handle this is with a defense in depth methodology. We look for all the different access points and ways that a hacker could get into your organization. And then we try to put in protections in place so that they will be able to stop that. And so you want to look at your network and figure out, where do we have protections in place today, and where could protections still be added that might work within our budgets, within our needs. And the big piece of that we like to make sure you include always is that advanced threat detection. That's what you just heard the folks from Perch talking about, is people will get in. We can do a lot of things to try to stop them. However, sometimes they will still get in. And when they get in, you want to catch it quickly so you can contain it and prevent problems from happening. If you were using a tool such as Perch and saw that a new forwarding rule was created, you could have stopped it before they were able to create any actual damage in your organization by changing the password, removing the forwarding rule, and containing the attacker. So specific things you can do to prevent email hijacking. Something we tell everybody everywhere: implement multi-factor authentication as often as you can, anywhere you see it. I don't care if it's on your Facebook account, any accounts that you use, you're going to want to implement multi-factor authentication. And that's where, when you type in your password, you get some sort of a prompt, either on an app or a text. The text is not the best way to do it, but being able to get the second notification for the fact that you are logging in somewhere. So therefore, if someone gets your credentials, they can't log into your account without having that second factor. You want to check the dark web for your exposed data. And this is something that we offer to organizations. If anybody here today wants us to do a quick search of the dark web to see if there's any of your domains credentials already out there, and for sale. Type dark web into the chat box, and Amber will hook you up to do a scan. That we'll do that free of charge for anybody who's on the webinar today. Just a little something we can do to try to help you make you more secure. Monitor your email boxes. That's what we've been talking about with the Perch-like tools. Somebody asked, is Perch a tool they can buy or a firm we hire for IT security? Perch through partners like Kyber Security, so you can't go buy it yourself and implement it because there is some technical process associated with that. But using a firm like Kyber, you could engage with us. We could engage just that service for you and get you protected. And real big, engage in cybersecurity awareness training program. Train your people to be vigilant for what's going on out there. Train them for the things to look at. Try to make cybersecurity a part of your organizational culture. Talking a little fast here because we're almost out of time. Again, that's the third goal that we had for today, how you can prevent email hijacks. We do have a couple of questions that came in, and we've got 1 or 2 minutes left. One of the
before you get into the question, the other questions, I want to clarify more about the relationship between Perch and Kyber, because there's a couple of people who asked about that. So if you can just kind of like clarify exactly like how we work with them and like what we do and then what they do, I think it would help.
So Perch is a tool that we use monitored by their 24/7, 365 security operations center. So they've got a bunch of folks like Paul and Bryson who are looking at the data, digging deep every day for the thousands and thousands of indicators of compromise that show up in a network that we're monitoring with Perch. When they see something that looks like it doesn't fit within your business rules, and we customize business rules for each individual organization to know what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. For example, you might have people that should be logging in from North Korea, or you might not. They will write a ticket to Kyber. Kyber then will act upon that ticket in some way, depending upon how we're working with you as a client. We may simply call your IT team if you have an IT team and say you need to do something. We may call a user and say you need to change your mailbox password, or you may engage us to try to remediate the threat and lock things down and stop the breach from getting any further. Is that what you're looking for there, Amber?
Yeah, I think that was good. And then I don't know if you saw this one, but I've received phishing emails which have came from address domains that appear very legit. For example, support@apple.com. How are they able to create or send such an address?
Yeah. So in most cases, they are not actually sending from that address. They are spoofing that email address to make it look to your side like it came from that address. However, what they're trying to do there is not necessarily get you engaged with them in an email conversation. So if they reply, they might not get the reply. They're trying to get you to click a link in there, will trigger the malware that they've sent off, or bring you to a site that is infected that's going to capture your credentials, such as they did with the Microsoft demonstration. They're trying to click through into the Microsoft site. So that's a spoofed email address. It's not difficult to do. There are ways you can configure email so that folks cannot spoof your email addresses as well, so that people cannot send as you and spoof that as if they're coming to you. However, it's not that difficult to spoof an email address to look like a legitimate email address, opposed to what this hacker did was sent from an email address where they could actually engage with you and reply to you. I think I'm out of time. And so there are some more questions that we have not been able to answer. If you'd like us to get to additional opens that you have out there, Amber will be collecting those and we'll be able to reach back out to you. If you have something else specific you did not get a chance to answer, Amber, can you put your email address, the marketing email address, into the chat? You can email any questions you have.
My email's on the screen.
Okay. Oh yeah, duh. You can email any questions you have to ameda@kybersecure.com. We'll get those collected. We'll get those answered for you. I appreciate everybody coming today.